And while recent polls seem to show that most of the local races are not that close, there is still a fair amount of drama on tap for tomorrow. We know the governor wants a big win. Will he get it? And who will control the state Senate? And what happens with that statewide proposition that you're going to find on your ballot tomorrow? Two of them. Those are just some of the questions that political insiders are expecting answers to on Election Day. And joining us now with his expert insight into the answers, our political analyst, New York Post state political columnist Fred Dicker from Albany, as always. And it is interesting, Fred, that although these races seem to have spread out a little bit, the ones that we thought were going to be very close, at least the polls suggest now that there's a little daylight, but we still have those overriding questions that I just talked about. And I guess topping them all is what happens in the governor's race.
Well, look, this is a very serious race. Obviously, the governor wants to win big. The polls show he's going to win, but how big he wins is the inside source of discussion right now. It's very possible, is with a third candidate in the race, Howie Hawkins from the Green Party, that the governor, should there be a good upstate turnout for Rob Astorino, a weak New York City turnout for the governor, it's very possible that Cuomo could win with less than 50% of the vote. That's being discussed as a real possibility, and if that did happen, that would be a real humiliation for the governor, who, after all, has a 2-to-1 enrollment advantage in the state, 2-to-1 Democrat over Republican, and he's outspent Astorino more than 20-to-1. So we're watching that closely. And then the control of the state Senate, very, very important. It's a surprising development. In a way, it's kind of unearned, but it really looks like the Republicans may take back control of the Senate. The governor's done virtually nothing to help the Democrats, who he promised he would help. And even if those Republicans come close to taking it back, we're going to wind up with a situation like we've had the last 2 years, with a small group of independent Democrats, so-called, may be the ones who decide who's going to control the Senate in the end.
And you and I have talked, too, about the congressional races and what you see, or what the experts out there are seeing, as sort of a Republican surge, and what kind of impact that's going to have.
Well, it wouldn't immediately have an impact on New York, but there's a good chance that 3 or 4 Democratic seats now held by the Democrats in New York, congressional seats, are going to turn Republican. And if, as is predicted, the U.S. Senate goes Republican, it may very well be that all of a sudden we're going to have some very influential Republican Congress members here in New York who will be able to do a lot more for the state than Chuck Schumer or Kirsten Gillibrand will be able to do, because they're both Democrats in the Senate. And
how about those ballot propositions that the governor has supported?
Well, that's one we're all watching carefully. Probably the most important one is the $2 billion so-called Smart School Aid Bond Act, which a lot of people think is a dumb school aid bond act. A lot of influential editorial writers, commentators on the state's economy have weighed in against it. The governor's pushing for it. It could go down. If it does go down, it'll be a loss for the governor. He's pushing it.
All right, we'll see where all this takes us, and I know it'll be fascinating to talk about it the days ahead as well. Thank you, Fred. And of course, Fred will get a jump on talking with me, because he'll be on the radio tomorrow morning, as he is every weekday, live from the state capitol, 10 to 11 on Talk 1300 AM.